Hi there, I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, became female. Speaking of that, we're going to talk to someone about his coming out story. My guest is Mr. Stephen Palmer, who is, yes, he is a physician's assistant and an oral historian, and he's going to tell us his coming out story. And we always like to do people's coming out stories because we hope that it will help people out there to come out. So come out wherever you are. My guest, Mr. Stephen Palmer.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My coming out story.
Yes.
I mean, when you say coming out, or when I think about coming out to me is a moving target, right? Because just when you think, or I think, that I'm out, I'll find another situation that comes up where I find myself self-censoring. And so it seems like when you're gay or bi or queer, there are always other situations that come up where you think to yourself, am I going to expose myself? Am I going to disclose? All right, so having said that and knowing that for me, coming out is a lifelong process.
Are you saying that you're out selectively but not out all the time with everyone?
People consider me to be out, right? I'm out at work. We have a wonderful environment we work in. I'm married to my lovely husband, David.
Where do you work, by the way?
At Columbia University in HIV vaccine research. And we're married. My father and friends and everybody were there. So in many different levels of my life, many different arenas, I'm out. But every now and then, I'll find myself in a situation where I don't know the environment that I'm in, and I consider to myself to what extent, if it's safe to come out.
Right.
Now, it makes
What would an unsafe environment be?
Well, that's a very good question because it's made me, at first I used to say to myself, well, Stephen, this is self-preservation when you're not disclosing. You want to make sure that nothing unsafe is going to happen. I was gay bashed many years ago.
Were you really?
Yeah. But I think that in a lot of situations that I have used self-preservation as an excuse.
Yes, you must come closer for the camera.
I think that it's residual self-homophobia.
In other words, internalized self-loathing?
Internalized self-homophobia, yes, internalized loathing. That's still there, that can still inform how I am in public. But let me go back to coming out.
One thing, though, you're straight-looking, straight-acting, a phrase I hate, but you are, and that, of course, smooths the way, doesn't it?
Straight acting. I mean, I hate the term as well, so I hate to think of myself as straight acting. So I'm not acting straight. This is me.
No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, but let me just say something to that became clear to me in the last year or so when I was writing. I hadn't thought of this before. When I was younger, my father was a very strong disciplinarian and at times would use the word sissy and so on. I feel bad even mentioning this stuff because he's turned out to be exactly the opposite of
We're
what he
all
was
products
then.
of our time, and in that time.
That's where he was at.
Exactly, but he's since grown out of it. Yeah.
He's wonderful. But I must have unconsciously recognized when the word sissy was used, not just by him, by society in general, and what those things about me were that made other people say bad things to me. So when I was a kid, I played jump rope. I liked arts and crafts.
Is it just this?
I didn't.
No.
I didn't. I didn't like sports. I didn't like the authoritarian coaches and so on. I didn't like any of that. I didn't like gym class. I mean, all of this I think can resonate with lots of gay guys. So what's interesting is that when I speak to people in my family, my Aunt Dot once said to me, "We all knew you were gay as a little boy. Just look at the pictures." And I think to myself, you knew I was gay and I didn't know I was gay. What does that mean, right? So you look at those pictures, and there's pictures of me. There's one where I have a gift I got from Christmas. It's a doctor's bag, and it's like 1967 or 8, and I'm holding it like a clutch in front of me, my head to one side like this, and my knee bent in.
The way the fashion models of the time looked.
And I wasn't posing or anything. That's just.
Do you mind telling us what year you were born?
61, July 11th, 1961.
You're a Cancer.
Triple Cancer.
Wonderful. So you're great at having a home with your husband and all that. You're a very family-oriented person.
Yeah. There's a lot of, astrology is a many splendid thing.
Yeah.
But, so the point is that when they're looking at that picture and they're saying that I'm gay, it's not that I'm ogling some guy's crotch. It's not sexual proclivity they're noticing. It's gender expression. And
what did your mother think? You haven't mentioned her.
Well, let me just finish this for a second. It's so important when kids hear, "We knew you were gay," when you're a kid, and they're like, I wasn't thinking sexually. I wasn't thinking about penises and stuff when I was 5 or 6. Often what that meant was that there was something that was considered, for lack of a better word, effeminate or not boyish enough, right? So gender expression came before
but I don't notice any effeminacy in you now.
No, because I believe that what I did was unconsciously chiseled out those things that brought the ire of society on me, right? And I noticed that a couple of years ago, I was in the subway and I had my legs, crossed like this, and a bunch of guys came in.
You mean your knee over...
Knee over knee.
Right, as opposed to ankle to knee.
Right. And a bunch of guys came in. They were, all sporting dudes, and they weren't doing anything wrong. And I just noticed that I took my leg and I went...
I think that's very smart. You don't want problems.
But there wouldn't have been any problems.
How do you know?
It's New York City on a subway 99% of the time. These guys just came back from being in Central Park.
Look, you never know. You cannot be too careful.
But the point is that I recognized that I had really, like I said, chiseled out those things that seemed effeminate. And I didn't even know that I was doing that.
And what did your mother think of all this?
Well, my mother died when she was 42. I was 21. So she had breast cancer when she was 30, and so a lot of those years were spent with her dealing with that.
Do you have siblings?
Yes, I have 2 brothers. However, let me just say, years after my mother died, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, her mom, said, your mom used to say, when I'm gone, treat Stephen nice because he's different than the others. And my grandmother thought, well, okay, of course I'm going to treat him nicely. He's my grandson. And my grandmother didn't recognize that what my mother was saying was that Stephen was probably gay, because I hadn't told her by the time she
And we're all
died.
products of our own time, and your grandmother would not be of a time when that was openly discussed.
Right. Well, my grandmother was very supportive of me in the long run. So, as you're talking about coming out, there's lots of coming out stories, right? There's, let me just say that in the summer of '69, I think it was June of '69.
You would have been 8.
I was 8. What I remember about the summer of '69 was the moon landing, primarily. I remember in '69, October, the Mets winning the World Series. I do not remember Woodstock. I'm sorry, I don't remember Woodstock. But My father was watching television, and he said, "Bernice," that was my mother's name, "come in quick. Look at all these queers jumping up and down." And I went into the room too, and I didn't understand what it meant, and I just saw like flames and fire engines or
Right.
police sirens and stuff. And I think that I was watching
Probably,
Stonewall
yeah.
on the news.
Yeah.
So there's my
Do
claim
you
to
remember
fame.
the Sharon Tate thing?
No, not until years later, probably like 76 or so.
Mm-hmm.
But as time went on, the thing that other boys were talking about, that's not where my gaze was fixed, right? Oh look at her breasts, and all of this stuff.
Well, didn't you lie?
Oh yes, of course. And I had girlfriends and so on as the years went on, and I guess it was in the late 70s, like 77 or so, there was a magazine on Long Island called Good Times magazine. It was a rock and roll magazine, and it had a personal section in the back. And people would advertise there, and that's how I got my first, like 16 or 17 years old, sexual encounters.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1978, my friend Bonnie, who I am still friends with, who lives in Northampton area of Massachusetts, no surprise, with her wife,
Hi, Bonnie.
Bonnie and Maggie. Hi, Bonnie and Maggie.
Hi, Bonnie and Maggie.
Asked me if I wanted to go to a gay bar, and I went with her. And I had long blonde hair, and I was wearing an aqua tie-dyed shirt, buttoned down, and there was a guy at the bar, John, gorgeous, who said, "Well, nobody worth picking up here tonight. Present company excluded."
Oh.
And that was my first pickup at a bar in 1978.
Were you
or
a
so.
virgin?
No, because I had those good time. I had those
Hookups.
good times hookups prior to that.
I once knew a reporter for that magazine.
For good
In
times.
1974, yes.
But even though I was having these sexual encounters, I still wasn't at a place where I was able to say, I am gay.
Were you hoping it would go away?
Let's back up. When I was 13, and I recognized that term homosexual was the thing that I was and was feeling, it was as if my entire being went south. I just fell into
Yes.
despair and dismay.
Excuse me.
I remember being in bed almost writhing, asking God to take it away from me. And there was even the thought in my head, maybe the only thing you can do about this is kill yourself.
A 13-year-old, isn't that horrifying?
Now, obviously I didn't do it, and I never had a plan, and I don't know that I thought about it more than once or twice. But I didn't recognize that what I was feeling was that thing that society hated until one day. And when that hit, I was in despair. I was in despair. I mean, because now what do you do, right? There wasn't a website where called, it's going to get better.
And the gay rights movement was just starting, was very much a fringe movement. This would have been around 1974 when you were 13.
Right.
And it was still really out there and crazy and weird. So you didn't have all the gay centers you have today and all the supportive people around today.
Right. I mean, luckily, one of the things that we did have, our high school on Long Island had something called the community school. It was one of those Summerhill 1970s countercultural projects.
Oh, I see. Like a rap group.
And it was called, or discussion group, it was called the Free School, or we called it the Freak School. And there were the leftover hippies, now it's moving into disco and so on. But there were 4 or 5 gay people. Bonnie was one of them in community school, and we would talk to each other. So that was happening for me in a way.
Was she your mentor in a sense?
You know, in a way, because, you know, even though now I've learned that Bonnie had her own levels of torment back then, she was going at it much more, I'm a lesbian. She was much more upfront. She wasn't straddling anything.
Mm-hmm.
I had, you know, girlfriends and
Trying to wipe away the gay, I guess.
trying to keep one foot in legitimacy. Yes, definitely trying to wipe away the gay, definitely. You know, and I loved my friends, my girlfriends. You know, that other piece didn't fit was.
Did you ever think of passing for straight, getting married, having kids, and having a secret life on the side?
No. And I think if it had been 10 years earlier,
You would have.
I might have. So even though I hadn't heard about Stonewall and I didn't know about the Gay Liberation Front or the Gay Activist Alliance, you know, the sort of osmosis of that explosion was getting into society little by little, so that, and plus I guess being a willful person, I moved in a different direction, in a good direction. I went to the State University of New York at Purchase, which was had a sort of a countercultural reputation as well, and a strong gay community. But even there, with those levels of support, I was worried about coming out. It took me a long time in the 80s to the point where I think I was really, you know, I wasn't pretending to be anything else, like
And
by
as you-
84 or so.
And as you've said now, you're only selectively out because sometimes it's dangerous or inconvenient or can do you harm somehow socially, whatever. And so, and look, I totally agree with that. I think you're very realistic. I know this isn't politically correct, but if you can pass for straight and it's important, do it, because your life will be a lot easier. You know?
When we say selectively, I would say that in over 90-something% of my life, I'm Stephen.
Yeah, but
I'm
you're not
gay,
going to
I'm
go into the
disclosed.
deli and, as you order a turkey sandwich, tell the guy, by the way, I'm gay. You know, I mean, he doesn't need to know this. You know?
Well, when I ask for a gray poupon,
Then he gets the picture.
then he gets the picture. So I'm
Just don't
out
ask
in
for a
an
cream puff.
enormous aspect of my life, the vast majority. But the fact that there are still places where I
Sure.
wonder about
Well, that's
doing
very
that.
smart and very sensible, and good for you. Good for you. You'd be an idiot not to. If you can have an easier life, why shouldn't you?
Let me mention something else about coming out during more during the 80s, right? Coming out when HIV was just beginning and people were dying. I wrote a piece recently, and it's called "Coming Out Equals Death," because it was very hard not to equate being gay equals HIV waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
I know a friend who threw out all his pornographic magazines. This was before the internet. When I asked him why, he said, well, I'm afraid that just masturbating will give me... this was a guy like he was 30-something. He wasn't an idiot. How could he think that masturbating at the sight of a man would give him HIV? That's ridiculous.
But, you know, if you think about the time, right, and sort of the think about the late 70s now, right? They're beginning the backlash against the 60s and the early mid-70s.
Yeah, and the yuppie culture was very big in those days.
Well, I'm talking primarily about the moral majority with Jerry Falwell.
Oh,
I'm talking about Anita Bryant. And
Squeeze
talking
those
about,
oranges, bitch. Yeah.
Talking about people's deviant lifestyles and so on, and then people start dying, and you know.
And the evangelicals are saying it's God's wrath.
And Pat Buchanan is saying, you know, look, this is what you're getting what you deserve.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
This is
Yes.
happening. This is happening. And if you were brought up that way, it didn't matter how revolutionary you were or where you wanted to be. Some of those unconscious thoughts were coming up, and they were just. It was difficult not to think
not
that.
with me, no. I not me, really, no. Oddly enough, I did think my father died of lung cancer in 1992. I thought is this AIDS? Does he have AIDS? No, it really was lung cancer, but I didn't trust him. You know, I mean, where the hell he stuck it? So who knows? But anyway, no, he died of lung cancer. But anyway, so, but you're a happy, well-adjusted gay person now. As happy as a person can be, living on this earth, and
during the Trump era.
Oh, please. But I mean, just living hurts, but dying might hurt worse, so don't do anything.
Well, living is worth it, and it's. But in terms of the coming out process, that's how come I see the coming out as a moving target, right? When I was 13 and I heard what that word was, that was part of coming out. Even if I wanted to pull myself back in, that
well,
I
you
was
knew
not
you were
going
that,
to be able
and there
to.
was no way around that.
Right. My earliest sexual desires, I remember being David Cassidy in the Partridge Family.
I see.
I remember my friend Sultana. We were like 9 or 10.
I love that name. Sounds like
Greek
a drag
gal.
queen, actually.
She was hugging a tree and she's like saying, "Oh, David Cassidy, oh, I love you." And when she was done with the tree, I was on the tree.
Because
I was hugging the
David
tree and I was
Cassidy,
David
yes.
Cassidy. Absolutely.
Yes.
But so increments, that's how coming out was for me, in increments. The 80s was a difficult time because, but in some strange way, HIV also sort of forced the issue in major ways.
Exactly. People couldn't hide anymore. People like Rock Hudson, people were supposed to be straight, who were assumed to be straight, let's say. Now we knew they weren't, And, that man who was in Midnight Express, the star of that, Brad something or other, he got HIV. So many did, Even though they said, well, we're straight. We are, really. But maybe they weren't,
Yeah. It's a process, and it's. I think one of the things, where I work right now, Columbia University in HIV vaccine research, one of the things that our participants enjoy, are the beneficiaries of, is that our environment is extremely open. And I have had participants there who have told me that one of the things that they got from participating in the vaccine trial, in addition to feeling good helping others and helping science and so on, was that they came out more, that our environment there allowed them to feel comfortable and loose and free in a way. One ended up having has been in a long-term relationship with somebody, and his mother knows the person who used to say to him, "Why are you hurting me on purpose?" And he felt that his interactions with her
that's guilt.
had to do with the sort of way that we were with him and what he learned by being with us.
An aunt of mine asked me 20 years ago, well, why do you have to tell people about this? I mean, can't you keep it to yourself? It's none of their business. I said, hello, I'm on television as a transsexual. What am I supposed to do? Say I was kidding?
Right.
I mean,
This isn't exactly the forum for staying in.
Yeah, really.
Right.
So now you do work with AIDS people. I'm going to ask you your address, and we have no time. So yes, you do?
I have worked in the field of HIV since 1996. First 11 years treating people with HIV. The last 12 years conducting research to find a vaccine or some preventative method to stop people who are negative becoming positive.
If people want to contact you about their HIV concerns, whether they have it or they don't, and they're afraid of getting it, how do they contact you?
You can look up ColumbiaResearchUnit.org. You can call us at 212-305-2201. You can, find out about our the studies that we have available. If we don't have something available, maybe the AIDS Clinical Trials Group does, if for people who are HIV positive who are looking to be in some of the trials. That's another group.
And it's no longer a death sentence, is it?
It doesn't have to be a death sentence. No.
And if people out there are the 13-year-old you once were and are thinking, oh my God, I don't want to be this, what's your advice to them in 1 minute?
These are much better days for people who are gay, and you know, there are websites that you can go to. What is the one? It gets better. It'll get better.
Yes, I've shot a video for it. You can see it on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
You should do one too. Just do it and put it on your Facebook.
Mm.
And it helps a lot, you know. It helps people out there, and it really does get better, you know.
Go online.
Mainly because you stop caring. A lot of people aren't going to like you because you're gay. That's life, folks. You don't like everyone. Why should everyone like you?
If you're attracted to the same sex, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. It is a normal variant.
And as Renee Richards said, there is no shame inherent in being a transsexual, and there isn't.
My husband used to play tennis with Renee.
How great.
Or was the ball boy or something. Easy.
I know, that's too fraught with joke possibilities. Renee Richards, ball boy. Okay. Anyway, and Renee, if you're watching, hi. You're a pioneer lady. Thank you, Renee. But anyway, okay. Now, is there anything else you'd like to tell people?
I was going to talk about the gay bashing before, but I don't know that.
We don't have time.
Yeah.
Which might be a good thing, you know?
It was rough.
Did they break anything?
I had a busted lip and my eye was black and so
Lord
on,
God.
and but no, I'm here to.
You survived, and there you go. And there someday will be no gay bashings of anyone someday. Anyway, my guest has been Mr. Stephen Palmer, who is a physician's assistant and an oral historian. Do you know the ball boy? Anyway, I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. Hey, even if no one else loves you, I love you. And, you know, being gay is just another way of being, you know. Don't let it upset you. We always have existed. We always will. It's a fact of life.
Truly.
Yeah. So don't worry about being gay. Be proud, or at least don't be sad. If you can't be out and you can't be proud, that's fine. But don't be sad about it. You know, you're a good person. I love you a lot. I'll see you next time. Bye.